And we can get started with today's session. Again, we're working on Google Forms for online education. And I'm going to follow the same basic format that I followed last time. We're going to spend the first half of this, 2/3 of this, hour or so, actually talking about how to use Google Forms, what all the different parts of it do, all the bells and whistles that go on there. And then we'll talk about some more specific applications that you can use it for in your classroom, specifically in an online setting. So great, thank you for all those responses. I'm glad the microphone is working this time. I can get these things figured out, I promise. So Google Forms is a part of Google Drive that is not based on any real Microsoft Office program. There's Google Docs, which is just like Microsoft Word. There's Google Sheets, which is like Microsoft Excel. There's Google Pages, which is very much like PowerPoint. But this is one tool that is kind of unique to Google. And it's a real hidden gem, as one online person said, of the Google Drive thing. So we'll take a look at how to do that here. Let's get rid of that title page. The address to get to Google Drive is drive.google.com, which makes perfect sense if you pay attention to how URLs work. And when you go there, you can check to make sure that you are logged in as you. If you've taken a picture for your account, it's here. But if you just hover your arrow, your mouse over it, it will tell you what email address you're logged in as. And this is really important because every Google address, every Google account that you use on your computer, it could pop up as one of those other accounts. And so if I click on my name, I can see that this is the only account I'm using on this computer. On my home computer, I have several different accounts that I've all linked to Google in various ways. So when I click on my picture, I get several different accounts, and I can switch back and forth between which account I'm looking at. Now, the reason I did that, nothing nefarious, but for most Google accounts, you are limited to 15 or 30 gigabytes of data. And when I was flipping my classroom, I was posting videos for students to look at, and videos take up a lot of memory. And so I created many different Google accounts so that I had enough storage space for all those videos. Well, now Greenville County has very nicely paid for the upgrade where we have unlimited storage. Now, I did look a little bit into it. It's not technically unlimited storage. It's like 10 terabytes, which is 10,000 gigabytes or so of data. And that number goes up about every week as Google adds more servers in their cloud. So unless you are a really unique case, you're not going to hit that limit on storage on Google Drive. But you're going to want to make sure that you are logged in with your @greenvilleschools.us address to do anything that has to do with Greenville County Schools. If you're not, you can add account and sign in with that one. You can sign out of the current one and then sign back in with the greenvilleschools.us. And if you're not sure how to do that, or you had a password at some point and it's gone, you can just talk to your building IT person to reset that password for you, or to put in a ticket to ETS to reset that for you. It takes all of 30 seconds for me to reset that for teachers. So not a big deal, but it's just easier if everybody in Greenville County is using the same account, because things are set up to work better together if we're all using the same email system, greenvilleschools.us. So this is Drive. This is where you can keep folders and files of everything. The county has attached all sorts of other cool things to their Google accounts, their Google apps. So you can have the Google search page, which is your normal Google search page. Sites, which most of you know is where we do our new web pages. Calendar, which we talked about the last session. Gmail, we have Gmail accounts now. Docs, Sheets, Slides, admins for me to change passwords, Maps. You have your own YouTube channel set up, Google Translate, Google Classroom. You've got all these options on here. Today and in the third session, we're going to focus completely on Google Drive, because that is where all these other things happen. If you need to go back and take a look at what we said about Google Calendar, as I said, the link is already posted for that. Google Drive, you might have two different looks to it. This is the new look. There is an old look. If I go back here, this is what the old Google Drive looks like. It doesn't matter which one you use, but at some point in the near future, Google will just get rid of this old format and will switch everyone to the new format. So I just suggest to everybody, you might as well switch over to the new format when it prompts you to. Welcome to the new Drive. Simply because you're going to get there anyway, you might as well get used to it now. The big changes are, instead of create, the button is called new, which I think makes just as much sense. And instead of things that are shared with you, the folder is called incoming, which sounds a little panicky to me, but we'll deal with that too. So to make a form, you click on new because you're making a new one. And here it gives you the options of new folder, new file upload, new folder upload, Google Docs, which is like a Microsoft Word document, Sheets, which is like an Excel document, Slides, which is like a PowerPoint. I think I said Pages before. That's Apple, Google Slides. And under More, I've got Forms and Drawings. And you can play around and connect other things that people who aren't Google have made to work with Google Apps. I haven't played with those very much. You're certainly welcome to try them out. But we're going to focus on Google Forms. So if I want to make a new form, just go New, More, Google Forms. And it opens up my paper here, the new form, in a separate tab. I can always go back to my Drive by clicking on this tab, come back to this one here. So let's talk about what's on this page that we can see. The first thing is it's an untitled form. And the way you give this a title, you don't have to Control S or save or anything. You can just click that and give it whatever title you want to. I'm going to very uninspiredly call mine test form. You can see that's now called test form here. And it also put that title here in the first page, page 1. So it pre-populates some of these fields for you. The star is to make it a favorite of yours. So if you click this because it's something you're going to use frequently, and you come back to my Drive, you've got your starred here where you can see everything that you've starred. You can use this to put it in a folder if you've created a folder on Google Drive, instead of having to file save as and then click around to find what folder you want to put it in. You can just click on this and it will give you a list of all of your folders. You can just tell it which one you want to put it in. Under here, you have all of your drop-down menus, and these work very similar to things you've seen before. So the File menu is things you want to do with this form. So you can add collaborators, which is a really powerful thing. If you are co-teaching with somebody, or more than one of you are going to use the same form because you're teaching the same course, it's not the same time or you're not co-teaching it, you can add collaborators. And then all you have to do is put in their email addresses. So editors can change the form, they can view all of the responses, they can do all that stuff. You can also send the form, and this is when you're done. And we'll talk about this in a little bit more detail later. But when you want somebody to use this form, a student or a parent or another colleague, this is the link you can send them to do that. Or you can make a short URL, a short version of it. I don't know why it doesn't default to the short version. That just seems like it'd be a smart thing to do. I always pick the short one because if I email it out, it doesn't like go off into the next line and get all crazy. You can share it through your Google Plus account if you are using that, through your Facebook if you're using that, or through your Twitter if you're using that. And yes, I know kids these days don't use Facebook anymore. Facebook is only for old people, like, people over 30. But if you use your Facebook to share things with students, this is a good way to do it. You can also type in individual email addresses if you want to send the form. Or you can click the embed button and you can get a little bit of HTML code to embed it into your website. And I'll show you what that looks like a little bit later. You can also create a new anything from here, so you don't have to go back to Drive to create a new thing. That's just a little handy bit. Open, rename, which lets you change the name from test form to something else, or you can just click on the name test form. Just click right here and it lets you change the name. You can make a copy of this if you're going to use this for another class, or you want to use a very similar one but change a couple things. You can make a copy and then use those. Another way to move to a folder, move to trash, is deleting it. You can download the form as a CSV file, which opens in Microsoft Excel. Another way to embed it, to get the code to embed it in an HTML document. You can email all of their collaborators, you can print it, all these great things. Under Edit, you don't have very much. You have Undo and Redo. You can view the live form, you can edit questions, you can change the theme, we'll come back to that. Compact controls just change how big this stuff up here is. Inserting, we're going to get to all of these in a few minutes. Responses are things you can do with the responses on the form when you get the answers back from people who have looked at it. Script editor under tools. If you know how to do computer programming, this is a very useful thing. But the script editor basically lets you write a little computer program to work with the forms to do certain things. You can see, function, my function, whatever. I am not a programmer. I took Fortran back in 1995, and I barely squeaked out of that. I am not a computer programming person. Some of you may be. Play around with this. You'll probably have a lot of fun with it. Add-ons, nothing here to worry about. Help, you can search or go to the forums, help, which is really kind of useful. They've got user forums where you can ask a question and other people who use this will answer questions. So that's pretty helpful. Under here you have some more icons, undo and redo. You can be in the editing questions mode, or you can change the theme, you can view responses, or view the live form. Now the themes, if you click on the change theme, it gives you all the themes over here on the right, and you can kind of see a preview of it. A lot of these I think look really cartoony. It's just not my style. But if these are things that work for you, if this is what that's perfectly fine. My favorites are things like this with a coffee, or the books, or because I taught chemistry, the lab equipment. But that's just what I do. Once you've picked the theme that you like, and you can customize the themes, you can change the font, you can change the color, you can change, is it center or left or right? You can change how, this background over here, make that go away, change this picture. You can modify these any way you want to. But once you're done, you can just go ahead and go back to Edit Questions, and it takes you back to where you were before. And you'll notice that you don't have to save anything. All changes are saved in Drive. Every time you make a change in a Google form or doc or sheet or anything, it automatically saves for you. And so if I hover here, it tells you the last edit, the last time it saved was seconds ago. The one exception is the website, where you have to hit save when you've made some changes. But in general, Google saves everything for you. There's not a button anywhere on that screen for you to save anything. So we can look at the form settings here. And there are some new ones. When I was reviewing my notes that I'd made a couple months ago, there were a couple new things on here that I had never seen before, so I'm glad I reviewed it. Because we're in Greenville County, and all of us are in Greenville County, you can require the district login to view this form, and that is the greenvilleschools.us. So if somebody who is not logged in with that address tries to view this form, it won't let them do it. If they're logged in as @gmail.com or at greenville.k12.sc.us, it won't let them fill out the form. It'll give them an error saying basically you need to log in to your Greenville County School District account to do this. If you want it to be shared with everybody in the world, you can just take that check mark off. It'll say, are you sure you want to do this? Someone else might be able to see it. Yeah. If you've got students that haven't gotten their greenvilleschools.us address, or you don't want to deal with the headache of getting them all logged in and all their passwords and all the other stuff set, it's fine. You can just take that check mark off, and it won't require them to log in. The second one automatically collects their username. Now, of course, the second one only works if the first one's also checked. But if you don't have either of those checked, you're probably going to want to put a question there for students to type their names in. unless you want it to be an anonymous survey, which is that also works. This was one of the new ones here. Show the progress bar at the bottom of form pages. So if you have a form that's 8 pages long, it'll show the progress along the bottom. You are 13% done, you are 25% done, you are 50% done, as they go along through that. So that is helpful for them. Gives them a little light at the end of the tunnel. Only allow 1 response per person. So if they're logged in and they take the survey or the quiz or the test, or whatever it is you have them do, it won't let them submit another one. If you leave this unchecked, they can submit as many as they want. And this one was brand new just in this last week that I've seen, where you can actually shuffle the order of the questions, which is great if you're doing an online quiz or a test. None of this, and we all know students will text each other questions and answers. But if they're in a different order, that helps cut down that a little bit. If you go to the very bottom of the page, you can decide how you want the confirmation page to look. That's the thing that they see after they successfully submit the form. Right now, the default text is, your response has been recorded. You can put whatever other message you want in there. You clicked perfectly, hooray, hooray, whatever you want. You can show a link to submit another response. And this is something that our Media Center does. Students use a Google form to log into to check in and out of the Media Center during the day. And so the media specialists can bring that up, they can view the responses, and they can see which kid logged in, what time they logged in, what time they logged out, and it's all collected for them. But every time someone logs in on that computer, it just brings up a link to do another one. So the next kid can log in, the next kid can log in, and so on. You can also choose to, when someone finishes, that they can view the responses that have happened so far. Or you can allow them to go back and change their answers. Again, totally pedagogically up to you how you want to do that. And then here's another send form button, which just gives you all these same options of a link, a short link, an embedding code, type in the email addresses, all those things. So you've got a send form button here, you've got a send form button in the upper right. Under file, you have a send form option. They really want you to send these forms. They are not going to let you get away with not knowing where those are. So that's kind of the settings of what we've got. The live form, view live form, when you click on that, it opens a new tab and actually shows you what somebody would see if they were to open up this form from a link that you sent them. Right now, I've got a title. I've got my design that I chose. And there's an untitled question and nothing else there. So as we build this, we can keep checking in by viewing live form to see exactly what it looks like, how it'll interact with other users. So I'll come back here. And right now we've got, I like leaving that checked. Right now we've got page 1 of 1, the title of your form, and you can put a description in. And you can describe this however you want. Then we can start putting questions in. And this is where kind of the meat of things come from. And you're going to choose questions that work best for your situation. Just at any time, if you have questions over things, if I am going way too fast, feel free to pop over in the chat and let me know. But this is all being recorded. I will send you, along with the email with a link to the recording, I'll send you some other files and documents and information that you can use as reference. But we've got a lot to go through here, and we're going to try to get all this out of here close to 6 o'clock as we can. I'm not going to go over, I promise. So the question title is where you can ask the actual question. So you could say, who was the first president of the United States? And if we want to make this a multiple choice, we can just go to question type, multiple choice. And we can pick 4 options. We can say Barack Obama. We could say George Washington. We could say Barney the purple dinosaur. And you can have as many choices, multiple choices as you want. I don't know, Moses. And so this works just like a regular multiple choice would work. When a student sees this, they will be presented with 4 options, and they click the one they think is right and go on. You can also add an other, where they can click this and type their own answer if you don't include the right answer up above. I tend to find that kind of tricky on tests for some kids, and I'm sure I misspelled Barack Obama, but I'm a chemist. Spelling's never my strong point. You can make it a required question, and this means that students are not allowed to skip it. They have to click something before they are allowed to move on. And this is another new thing that I just discovered, the advanced settings. For multiple choice, you can have them shuffle the options. So there's no A, B, C, D. It just gives them 4 options. They have to click the little radio button, the little round button next to them. But if you shuffle it, they'll always show up in a different order. I like that. Now, one quick note about the formatting of this. If you ask who was the first president of the United States, when you look at the results, it puts it in like a spreadsheet. So it looks like an Excel spreadsheet. And the top of the column is the question titles. Well, that's a very long question title to put in the top of an Excel spreadsheet. So what I usually do is move this down to the help text and just put a 1 there. So when I see the spreadsheet at the end, I'll just have a number 1 at the top of the column, and then the answers that students put, instead of trying to fit who was the first president of the United States all in that first column, which you kind of start to lose things then. Again, if that's how you want to do it, awesome, it works. This is another option you have to simplify the responses. Now, as we're typing, there's 3 tools up here. The pencil is the edit tool, and that's the mode we're in right now. It's kind of hard to tell, but this one's shaded a little darker than the other 2. You can also copy this question, duplicate it, if you're going to use a similar question, like the same 4 choices, but ask a different question, or you can trash it and get rid of the question. Once you're done with everything, just hit done, and this is kind of what it looks like. Question 1, who's the first president of the United States? You get your 4 options. This little red star here, next to number 1, indicates it's a required question. Students will not be allowed to go on until they answer that. And if they try, it puts this huge red bold box around the question, and so they have to go back and scroll through, find the red boxes, and answer those questions. So there's multiple choice. Very easy. Another easy one is the text answer. And this just gives students the ability to write a short textual answer. So I may say, what is the control center of the cell? Now again, that'll be in the top part of the column. If I don't want that, I can just move it down to there and call this question 2. Short answer. So they just want 1 word. I'm going to make it required. Under advanced settings, and this is a great option, that this is brand new here. You can do data validation on their answer. So if you're asking them for a number of something, it won't accept it if I say, greater than 3. It will not accept their answer if they put in a number less than 3. You have all of these other logical things here, greater than or equal to, et cetera, et cetera. So between is another good one. So if you know that they need a number as an answer, but it should be somewhere between 6 and 15, this won't accept an answer that's less than 6 or greater than 15. So it's a great way to give kids a little extra hint or a little extra help on something. Regular expressions are any patterns. So if you know it has to contain, you want it to contain a certain string of letters, you can do that. Or, what I think is really cool, is you can say that this is going to be text and it should be formatted like an email address. And if what they type here isn't formatted like an email address with the @ sign in the middle and something dot something, then it won't accept the response. It'll make them go back and at least put in something that is formatted like an email address. They can also make them format something like a URL. So http:// www. whatever. and it won't accept it if it's not that. But we just have regular old text, control center of the cell, it's going to be a nucleus, nothing special needed for that. So I'll just say done. And so we've got a multiple choice question, we've got a short answer question. We can also use paragraph text, and this is the long answer question. So question 3, I want to say describe why Huck's reaction to Jim dressed as the Arab is an example of irony. And then students will be able to go here and type out their answer for that. I want to make this required. And under advanced settings, again, we have data validation, but now we can put a minimum character count on there. I won't accept any answer that's less than 100 characters long. That makes them type in this about 3 lines of text. That's not very much, but you can play around with this if you want. And the custom error text is what it will tell them. In addition to the bold red box, you can have it say something like, please give a longer, more thoughtful answer. Done. So they'll have this box to type their paragraph in. It will expand as it needs to as they're typing. Multiple choice we've looked at. Checkboxes are much like multiple choice, but you can choose more than one thing. So I could say, which of the following elements are metals? Now again, I keep messing that up. I don't want that in the question title. I like that down here. Question 4. So as many options as you want, and they can just check them all. So I could say lithium, sulfur, calcium, oxygen, barium. And here's a great use for other. I can add an other and say, for a bonus point, name another metal that wasn't listed above. And they can click other and put that in there, and you can assign a bonus point. Under advanced settings, again, you can do data validation, and you can shuffle the order. So it always comes up in different order. I'll make it required, and we're done. You can see that these are boxes. You can click as many as you want to. The square button indicates that. The round button indicates you can only choose one. That's just kind of common internet usage. You can also choose from a drop-down list. In essence, this is just like multiple choice, but instead of listing them all out here, you get them as a drop-down box. So it might be, who is your homeroom teacher? No, I did it again. Put that there, question 5. So we could say, you know, is it Smith? Is it Jones? Is it Brown? Is it Patel? Or I'll put myself in there, Perkin. Notice there's no option for other. They can't type in another one here. And you do have this option here of go to page based on answer. If you click this, you can say, well, if they clicked that Smith was their homeroom teacher, I have a set of questions for Smith students. But if Jones was their homeroom teacher, I'm going to create a different page with other questions for Jones's students. That starts to get a little detailed and picky, and it turns into a lot of work. But if you're collecting a lot of information from these forms, sometimes it's worth it, especially if, you know, Smith is 9th grade homeroom and Jones is 10th grade homeroom and Brown is 12th grade homeroom, and you need different information for each of those classes. You can set that up. I'm not going to do that, though. I'm going to make that required. Under advanced settings, again, you can shuffle the order, but what you get is a drop-down menu, which we'll preview when we look at the live form. But it's just this thing, they click on it, it drops it down, they can choose from the list. All right, so those are all of the basic ones. So I'm going to add a new page to go to the more advanced ones. And to create another page, we just add a page break. And I'm going to call this page more advanced options. And again, you can put a description there if you want to. And so when students are taking this, this is the first page they'll see. They'll answer these 5 questions, and at the bottom of the page, it will say next, and they'll go to the next page. And again, it won't let them go to the next page if they failed to answer these properly. If they didn't answer one, if there weren't at least 100 characters in this answer, it won't let them move on to the second page. They'll have to go back up, find the red box, and take care of that. I'm going to make that plural, more advanced options. And again, to edit it, you can click on the pencil, or they've actually changed this from a suggestion from a user. Just click on the thing you want to change, and it'll open it up and let you change it. Great option for that. Under advanced, we have scales, grids, dates, and times. Scales, well, it's exactly what it sounds like. You can rate yourself on a scale of whatever number to whatever number. 1 to 5 is the default one. So this is kind of like a Likert scale, where 1 is never and 5 is always. And the question might be, how often do you study with the TV on? I'll make it required. Notice there's no advanced options for this one. And so they just get the scale. And they can pick their answer and move on to the next one. Again, the little red star means it's required. The grid, and this is one I love using all the time, is a whole bunch of scales all together in one. So the question might be, well, let's say presentation rubric. We're going to talk a little bit more detail about using a rubric here. So I'll make this question 7, presentation rubric. So you can label as many rows as you want, as many columns as you want. So if somebody's presenting, I might want to rate them on the volume that they're speaking. I might want to rate them on eye contact. I might want to rate them on speed of delivery. Were they talking too fast, too slow? I could also rate them on the content, if I can spell it right. I can rate them on the visuals that they used. And finally, I could rate them on teamwork if they're a member of a team. And for the columns, I can just give them scores of 1 through 5. Under advanced settings, you can shuffle the rows if you want to. You can limit responses to 1 per column. So only one of these can be a 5. One of them has to be a 4. One of them has to be a 3. You can't repeat scores. There may be a time you want to use that. This is not that. I'll require this. And then you get a grid. So I can rate them on volume, click, eye contact, click, speed of delivery, click, and so on. Many teachers in my building are actually using a grid like this to do their end-of-class student surveys, where they've just typed in all of the 20 prompts and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and put a paragraph, a long answer box at the bottom, and students can go through anonymously, score the teacher, submit it, and the teacher ends up with a spreadsheet full of numbers for each line. And then they can do all of their tallying and answer their reflection questions and all of that stuff. So there's the grid, one of my favorites. Lots of information in a very small space. Date and time are 2 new options here. Date is exactly what it sounds like. So question 8, I might say, when is your birthday? I don't have to include the year, because let's be polite with each other. You could include time, but then students will just choose a month and choose a day and submit it. And it just looks like this. When is your birthday? Month, day. Time has 2 options, actually. So, excuse me. Question 9, I might say, what time do you go to bed at night? And students will put in an hour, a minute, an AM or PM, and I'll make that required. There's no other options here except for duration. So for duration, I can add another question that says, how much time do you spend on Instagram each day? And I hope, at least from the kids I've witnessed, that the numbers actually go high enough for that. And I'll click on duration. So now instead of giving me a time, like 3 o'clock p.m., it'll just be so many hours, minutes, or seconds if you have the kid who is that into and concerned with their Instagram. And it just looks like this. How much time is on Instagram? They can pick the number of hours, minutes, and seconds. And it works beautifully. So we've gone through all the basic question types. We've gone through the advanced question types. And there are some layout things that we can start to look at here. You can insert a page break, which we've already done. You can insert a section header. And this literally is just, as you're scrolling down, it's just bigger and bolder than the other things. There's no question associated with it. So I might say, study habits is this section. But the questions are, I forgot to put a number on that. Let's fix that. 10. How much time is in Instagram? But the study habits are 2 previous questions. What if I want to rearrange these? Super easy. The 4-way arrow that you see, and I'm pointing the screen like you can see where I'm pointing. The 4-way arrow is the symbol on computers for you can use this to click and move things. So I can click on study habits and drag it up above question 9. And now as I'm scrolling down here, I can see more advanced options. Oh, study habits. This is the next questions are going to be about study habits. So you can use those section headers to divide up if you're doing that. It really does help students if you have a lot of questions to kind of mentally set their mind to where you want them to be for each section. Not required, and you're certainly welcome to do your test the way you want to, but sometimes it just gives students a little extra bit of a boost to be able to know, oh, this is what I'm doing now. Oh, these questions are all vocabulary questions. I'm in the vocabulary section. Or I'm in the short answer section. They're all short answer. Sometimes that just helps the students focus better on what they're supposed to be doing. You can also insert images for things. I'm going to come back up to page 1 here. And let's say I want an image of a cell for the control center. I can add item and click on image. And what it gives me here is several options. If I have a picture of a cell that I want to use, I can upload the picture of the cell by clicking here, going through my pictures, and finding a picture of a cell to use. If you have a picture on your desktop already, you can use the screenshot. And I'll just allow this to do it. And then if you have a camera on your computer, I don't know why it's saying there's no camera detected, you can take a picture of yourself, you can take a picture of something else and put it on there. If you have the web address of a picture, you can use that here. I really, really don't recommend using this because if somebody changes the picture at that URL, that address, then whatever they change that picture to could actually show up on your form. Several years ago, this happened. You've probably heard the story in Greenville County. Somebody linked to a picture by just putting the URL, not saving the picture and uploading it. And this person who owned the picture saw there were all these hits coming because every time a parent looked at that web page, it went to this other person's web page and pulled that picture, and they didn't like that because someone was using the picture without permission, and so they changed the picture to something pornographic, and of course now the teacher website was going out and pulling whatever was at that address, but instead of a teddy bear or something, it was now porn on the website. Not the smartest thing. I never use the by URL. If by your albums, these are albums you have stored online. Google Drive, any pictures you have that are already in your Google Drive, Or the easiest one, just search for a picture to use. And this search is through Google, Life magazine, or stock photos that are available. All of these have been filtered to include anything that you are allowed to use to the Creative Commons license. So if I wanted to look for a cell on Google Images, I can search for that. I want it to be, let's see, a line drawing. And this is full color or black and white or primarily purple. I don't know why they have that. But I can scroll through here and look to see if there's anything that looks like what I want. I'm not seeing a lot. So let's go away from line drawing, go to clip art. Here we go. Here's some nice cells. So I'll just pick the first one here. Let's see if that works. Select. Okay. Sometimes it finds in the searches images that it can't use because it's the wrong format. So we'll find something else. Maybe that one will work. Nope. These are all the wrong formats. Oh, that might work. There we go. So we've got a picture here. And you can make the picture bigger or smaller just by dragging the corners, just like anything else. You can say this is a cell. And then you can drag this up to where you want it. So before question 2, what is the control center of a cell? I can put the picture of the cell right there. That works really well. The other really new thing they added was you can embed YouTube videos. And YouTube has been a little picky with me on whether videos are allowed to play or not. So let's see if this works. So I would use these crash course chemistry videos all the time in class. And so if I wanted to look at the periodic table, because this is going to give us information about metals and nonmetals, I clicked it, blue box, select it. It puts it somewhere on the page. There it is. And again, once it's done, I can drag this to any place on my form that I want to. And so since this is something about metals and nonmetals, I'll drag it to the point where it's before metals and nonmetals, if it lets me. This gets a little picky about how order gets redone. Cell above. Come on. There we go. So at this point, when they're looking through it, they'll see the video, which they can play, and then the question follows the video. And these are YouTube videos. And remember, I told you way back at the beginning that you have a YouTube channel that is yours. You can upload your own videos if you want students to listen or watch you explain something and then answer a question about it. It's all able to happen right here. All right, so we've gone through all these different options. I've got an example of each thing up here. I'm on multiple pages. What will this look like when a student looks at it? Well, we view the live form to see what that looks like. It opens a new tab, and here's what I've got for this live form. So the first question, who's the first president of the United States? What is the control center of the cell? Put that in there. I'm not going to type all of that. I will just put in a bunch of random letters, so it will let me move on. Make sure I've got 100 characters or so. That should be good. You can play the video.
Hello, I'm Hank. Welcome to Crash Course Chemistry.
Which is working. Awesome. It wasn't working for me yesterday. I can say that these 3 are metals. And if you notice, this is a different order than I had them before. I had lithium at the top before. It shuffled them for me. Who's your homeroom teacher? And continue. Now, if I didn't answer one of those things right, it would not have let me continue. It would have reloaded the same page and put the red boxes around. So I'll show you how that looks. So the TV on always. If I answer all of these, but oops, I missed content, I can put in a birthday. I can say I go to bed at 11:30 8:30 p.m. and any given day I'll spend 4 hours and I'm not that exact. Submit. Oh, look, I missed one. Oh, it's telling me I missed it. So it puts a red box around it. Please enter one response per row. Okay, I've got that. I didn't miss anything else. Submit, and it's done. And it tells me the response has been recorded and gives me a link to submit another response. So I can do this as many times as I want to, and it keeps taking me back there. But now I have one response that I can view. So if I want to view the responses, it takes me to a spreadsheet, which should open up here anytime. There we go. Gives me the timestamp, so when was this survey taken? When was this form filled out? And it gives me question 1 through whatever up here, and gives me the answer that I chose or typed. And here's my wonderful SN Huck Finn. This was the check boxes. I checked 3 things. It puts all 3 in the box there. And then we get to the scales. So this was, question 6 was about sitting with the TV on. Answered 5 for that one. Question 7 had all of these different lines. So the line about volume, I answered 4. Line about eye contact, I answered 4. Speed of delivery, 3. Content, and so on. And then I come to question 8. Question 9, the time I went to bed. 10, how long I spend on Instagram. And it's all right there. And if you have your entire class do this, you'll have all of these rows filled up with answers, all right there. And you can real quick just skim down. Who didn't get George Washington? Who didn't get nucleus? Did you have all of these here? Homeroom teachers. And you can sort by these. If you just click on the column, this little arrow, you can actually sort by whatever answer you want. So you can sort by homeroom. You could sort this. So all of the George Washingtons are together, and all of the Moseses are together, and all the Barneys are together, so that you can look real quick and just group the kids if you're doing a formative assessment by this. Pat, I see that you have a question about how to set up answers, and that is the next thing we're getting to. So there's a really great tool that will grade these things for you automatically, and we are getting there in just a few minutes. Thank you for asking that. Before this other thing came in, you'd have to go through and literally go through one by one and grade them, which is nearly as much work as actually grading a handwritten test. But there's a great new tool we're going to use for that. So if we come back and look at the My Drive, when I scroll down here, this is in alphabetical order, I see test form, and I've got 2 of them because I was playing around with them before, and I've got test form responses. So I've got 2 separate files. This one is the form, and this is all the student responses from that. And the little icon tells you the difference. This is the little icon for a form. This is the icon for a spreadsheet. But you can also get the preview. So this looks like the form that I just made, and this, you can see the one line of student data here. So you're done. You've sent it out for students to take. They're taking it. You have several options to look at once you're done with the test. One thing I always recommend is going to responses. And right now this is telling me that this survey is accepting responses. If I click on this, it says now the form is no longer accepting responses, try contacting the owner. So if I go to view the live form, it gives me that error message. Why would I use that? If a class is full, if I've got enough surveys that I don't need anymore, if the time to take the test has expired, you tell the students you have until Wednesday at noon to take this, and Wednesday at noon you can turn off the form so they can't access it anymore. A really handy tool. You can also make your form and start with it not accepting, so that the link might be on your web page or on email, but you don't want to let students start to take it until 6 p.m. Then you can just keep it shut off, and then at 6 p.m. you just go to responses and turn it back on. So now it is accessing the responses. Students can click on it and it works. If you use the same ones over and over again, like from class to class to class, each semester, you don't want to keep all of these lines of data in here if you're teaching a brand new class the next semester, the next year. So one option that Forms gives you, which is a new one for me, under responses, is you can actually delete all the current responses. So you don't have to scroll through all of last year's answers to get to this year's answers. You can just delete the responses and it gives you a blank spreadsheet again. Great, useful tool. They also have a pre-filled URL, which is a little strange, I think. But what it lets you do is actually go through here and say, you know, we didn't get to learn about the nucleus. I'm just going to give them this one, and then we'll be good. And then submit, and now you get this new link where nucleus is already filled in for them. I'm not sure exactly where you'd ever use that, but it's, thank you, but it's an option. It's there. You can do that if you want. Thank you, Davis. The recording, I'll email out the link to that. So you can delete the responses. You can pre-fill some answers if you want. And that might be a way to differentiate tests or something. You can change where the response goes. That's just too much to mess with. Who it goes to, what folder the response goes in. If you don't want it in the same folder as the actual form itself, it's up to you. But the other cool thing you can do is this will give you a summary of responses. It will actually do a little bit of data analysis for you. And I've only got one answer in there. I've only taken it once. But for each question, it decides what data would be most useful based on the type of question. So for a multiple choice question, it will give you a pie chart and show you what percent of students answered each of those like that. For short answer, it will actually give you a histogram. How many did nucleus? How many did this? How many did this? You get an actual graph of that, which looks kind of like this. So I can see here that one person answered lithium, one person answered calcium, one answered barium. If someone else took this and answered other things, those would show up in here, and you could see at a glance what the most popular answers were and what the least popular answers were. The drop-down menu works just like the multiple choice. That's why they have the pie chart here again. They also have lines and bars for each of the grid rows, and then dates and times. And it groups them here using a stem and leaf plot where it'll list all of the 11 o'clock. So for the 11 o'clocks, everyone who's 11 something will be listed. And then 10 o'clock, all the 10 somethings will be listed. That's how they do that. And you can see how many people have been answering. So you can jump on here real quick and just see, okay, today, one person has answered this survey. But if you have a class of 30 and you can see that 23 people have answered, you know that you're still waiting on 7 responses. Now, embedding the form in a website, I'll show you that real quick. If I go to send the form and I get the embed code, and I'm just going to right-click and copy this embedding code. And I'm going to go to my website. And I'm going to make a new page that I will call test form. And it gives me this beautiful blank page. So if I want to now be putting things on here, the edit button is the pencil. So I find the pencil to edit. It takes me here. Google websites, you have to hit save when you're done, otherwise it won't save it. But I want to put that embedding code in. And so of all the buttons up here, this one that has the angle brackets HTML, this switches it to the coding view. So now you are editing the HTML code, and all you have to do is paste all of that coding into there, hit update, and now it shows you kind of the space that it will occupy on the web page. I can center it, I can set up properties, make a different size, any of that stuff. X will delete it. We don't want to do that. And then I'll save. And once you save, it actually puts the form right here on your web page in its own window. And so people can scroll through and fill this out without having to leave your web page. So they don't have to click another link. They don't have to open their email and copy and paste a link. It's right there on the web page for them. This is actually how I do with the National Honor Society. It's not up there now, but we have an information form that I put on my National Honor Society webpage. And at the very first meeting, we go to the media center, everyone logs onto a computer, and they can fill in their information. And then I have a spreadsheet of all the contact information for all my NHS members. Works beautifully. All right, so we've done all of that. We've gotten through all sorts of things. And the one thing that's left is to take a look at the grading option that Pat was asking about. And this, I just learned about this grading option about a year ago. And it's so beautiful. It works wonderfully. But it has a really silly name. It's called Flubaroo. And rather than listen to me talk on about it, I'm going to just show you a video for a quick overview of it. And this video is actually from the Flubaroo people.
Did you know that you can use Google Forms to give assignments and assessments to your students' class? And now with Flubaroo, you can quickly grade them too. For this demo of Flubaroo, I created a fake assignment with Google Forms, and I've submitted answers myself. All of the submissions were automatically inserted into the destination spreadsheet. Now that I have all the submissions, I'd like to grade them, which is where Flubaroo comes in. Flubaroo is an add-on that you can install from right from the spreadsheet. At the same time in this demo, I've already installed it. Once installed, you'll see a new menu called Flubaroo underneath the main add-ons menu. Let's select Grade Assignment and see what happens. In step 1, Flubaroo asks me to select the grading option for each question asked, such as its worth points, if it identifies a student like a name or an email address, or it could be skipped. Flubaroo will do its best to identify the correct option for you. Once I've correctly selected all grading options, I can click Continue to move on. In step 2, Flubaroo asks me to identify which submission should be used as the answer key. Looking through there, I recognize the first one as the submission I made earlier, which I want to use as the answer key. Once selected, I can continue on with the grading. Once started, the grading should finish within under a minute. Great, it's done already. Now I can click on View Grades to see the result. Note that to record the grades, Flubaroo has created a new adjacent worksheet called Grades, seen here in the lower left. At the top of this worksheet is a summary of the grading, including the average score and other useful statistics. Beneath this are the grades themselves, which include the total score expressed in both points and percent, the number of times this student made a submission, and of course the score for each individual question, which in this case is either 0 points or 1 point. Also, for each question, the very last row shows the percent of students who got it correct. Questions on which less than 60% of the students got the right answer are highlighted in orange. Additionally, the names of the students will be in red font if they scored less than 70% on the assignment. Besides grading, Flubaroo has other useful features as well. For example, Flubaroo can show you a report showing the distribution of grades, which you can email to yourself. Additionally, and most popularly, Flubaroo can email grades to each student. You'll have the option to include an answer key or not, as well as a personal message to include in the email. Thanks for watching. I hope Flubaroo can be helpful to you and your students. Please send comments or feedback to dave@edplay.org. Keep Flubarooing.
Flubarooing. Sure, why not? So Flubaroo, if I went to view responses again, is under add-ons, and he didn't show you how to get that. So I want to just take a second here to show you how the add-ons work. Add-ons are an option for all of the Google Drive apps. And to get them, you just go to Get Add-ons. And it opens up this little floaty window, and it gives you all of these things that you could use with, in this case, Google Sheets. The things that it suggests are different depending on what you're using. There are different add-ons for Docs and different add-ons for the PowerPoint-like one. But here you can set up workflows. Here's one that helps you build quizzes on forms faster, different styles you can use, mail merging, split names. So if somebody put, first name, last name all in one cell, this will split it into 2 cells. Lots of things that you can play with, a schedule generator, maps, fonts, all these great things that you can work with. If there's a check mark there, that means that you've already installed that one. It's already there for you. So it won't let me install this one. It's already there. And so when you're working on your responses sheet, you have to enable Flubaroo on the sheet before you can do anything else. It doesn't automatically pop up so that you can grade things immediately. You have to activate it. But once it's activated, then you can go through and grade the assignment. There's also some more advanced things that the video didn't talk about, like AutoGrade. This is a really great tool to give immediate feedback to students. If you turn on AutoGrade, it'll go through all of the how we're going to grade this questions. But then anytime a student actually takes this quiz, and once they hit submit, Flubaroo will automatically grade it and immediately send them an email with their results. And you can set up the email to include the answer key, to have any other comments on there. But students will get an immediate email to whatever email address they've put in here to use with all their results and any feedback you give them. Great, very powerful. And all of this information stays on your sheet. So not only do the students already know this, it's already graded on yours. You don't have to hit any other buttons. It just automatically grades it and keeps adjusting the class average and the assignment averages and the student averages, gets all of that taken care of automatically. And again, it's under add-ons. You can get add-ons to get the Flubaroo. These advanced options, you can play with them. Right now, a student who gets below 70 is going to be highlighted in red. You can change that if you want to set the bar higher. You can use your address that you logged in with instead of the no reply address. However you want to do that. All right, so that is the nuts and bolts of forms and how to use it. Are there any questions at this point? Just because I'm not going to leave dead air, I'll just keep talking while you're typing questions if you have any. There's a lot that I haven't covered about Google Forms and a lot of things that you can just play with and get on there. One of the options, one of the add-ons that you can get includes, let's see here, if I can find it again. There's one of them that gives you the option, it might be GMath actually, that lets you write actual math equations on there. Because right now, if you're just writing questions, you are limited to just text on a keyboard. But that the GMath actually lets you put in, like a system of equations for a student to solve, or things with exponents and special symbols like pi. So if you're a math teacher, that might be something you want to install and play with that. Again, I have not installed that. I don't know exactly how it works, but it's a company that has made this for Google to use with their forms. All right, I'm not seeing any questions. So at this point, I think I'm going to just move on to ways that you can use forms in your classroom. And we've already talked about using it as a quiz or a test, which is which is great. It really does work out well, but there's lots of other options that we can use. And so I'll just bring this over here so we can take a look at some of those. All right, so at the beginning of class, I know that every teacher does one of those getting to know you forms where you have 1 or 2 pages of questions for students to sit down and write their answers to, and then have their parents sign it and get it back to you. Well, this can actually replace that. If you type in all of your questions that you want onto the Google form, and then parents and students can just go to your website, fill out the form and submit it, now you have all of your students' contact information. You have parent contact information. You have information about student likes or dislikes or what they think their own strengths are, all connected on one spreadsheet. So instead of collecting all the papers back, 3-hole punching them, putting them in binders, you can flip through and find information. It puts them all on one spreadsheet for you automatically, which is really convenient, really useful. And because it's stored in the cloud, it's not tied to a specific computer. You can access that on your school computer. You could access that from home. You can access that from an iPad or a smartphone of any kind, because Google Forms and the sheets can open up on those mobile devices. You can't create sheets on an iPad or an iPhone, as far as I know, but you can fill out forms. So if you've got students who may not have access to the internet at home, but they have a smartphone at school, they can actually fill out the form on their phone, and you've got it right there. Another thing you can do is get more feedback from parents. So this is, in lieu of an in-person parent conference or sending letters home to parents and hoping they get signed and returned. Parents can just fill out the form, and again, you have access to all of that. You can see what time, what day they filled it out. It's all kept together in a spreadsheet for you. Great way to prove your parent communication. You can then print out that sheet and put it in your Pastry notebook as evidence of communication with parents. And again, this saves a lot of money. Parents can also do this on their cell phones. So if you combine this with something like Remind, where it texts out to parents and students, you could send out via Remind the link to the form. They can bring it up on their phone, hit the link with their finger, it takes them to the form, they can fill it out and be on their merry way and not have to worry about missing anything with that. You can also use it for exit tickets. If you have a very quick question you just want students to work on, you've just taught us this wonderful lesson about westward expansion and manifest destiny, and you want the kids to just give you a real quick answer, either typing the short answer, multiple choice, check boxes before they leave. You can just throw an exit ticket at them. They hit the link, take it, and go. And you've got some instant feedback on how that lesson went. You can also use it, and I don't remember if I put this as a separate slide later. You can also just use a blank generic form. So they will have to listen to what your question is. And so it just might say, type the answer to the question your teacher just asked you. And so the link to that form is always the same. You don't have to create a new form and put a new link and send it to students again. If it's the same link every time, and there's just a generic question on there, then you can just reuse that over and over again. Once you've got the information you need, delete all responses, and you're ready to start over for the next time. Oh, and this is the one I was just talking about. So you can use this as a formative assessment during class, because that spreadsheet with all the responses does update live. So you can see immediately how students are doing. You can use the report to kind of plan further lessons, or how you're going to adjust what you're teaching or how you're teaching it. You can also do anonymous surveys. As long as you turn off that option that requires them to log in and collects their usernames, you can give anonymous surveys. And sometimes that's what we want. We don't want kids to have their names on things. For example, if you're collecting information on students' e-habits or e-behaviors, like how many hours a day do you spend on Instagram? is it possible to remove the cell phone from your hand, or is it surgically attached? You can ask kids these questions anonymously. You could also give them short little tests on their online skills. Do they know how to search Google? Do they know how to do other things? Do they know how to keep their identity secret from people who are emailing them or texting them or contacting them on Instagram without giving away identifying information? All this can be done through an anonymous survey, which makes the kids feel a little safer. Sometimes in formative assessments, you want them to be anonymous as well. Students don't always have to put their names on their exit slips. You just want a quick overview of how the whole class is doing. An anonymous survey is kind of perfect for that. Students can also do self-assessments of their own skills, their own abilities, and you can use the scales to the grids. So they can rate themselves on anywhere from I don't have a clue what I'm doing to I know this well enough that I can teach it to somebody else. You can give them a grid to break down specific things if they have to do a multi-step thing. For example, in an algebra class, they might take 4 steps to solve an inequality with absolute values or something. And so you can ask them at each step, how confident are you at isolating the absolute value? How comfortable are you at splitting the absolute value inequality into 2 separate inequalities to solve? How confident are you in this, or that? And they can assess themselves. And then you can go back after reteaching and have them do it again and see if they are becoming more confident in things. You can also use it as a practice quiz or a practice test. And then the students get the immediate email from Flubaroo with the answer key, so they can see, oh, I did know how to do this, or, ooh, I better go back and try this again a different way. The self-assessments are a really easy way to do this. The hardest part of it, the thing's going to take the longest amount of time, is you actually creating the questions and putting them in there. But you can have students create the questions. There's no rule saying that you have to do all this work. Let students do some work. I mean, what do they do all day? They sit around, right? So you can have students create these. They have a Google Drive account. They have a greenvilleschools.us account, or at least the middle school and high school students do, which means they have access to Google Forms. Now, if you're doing a project that requires a whole lot of data for them to analyze, if you're doing math or a computer science course, maybe even others, students can actually create their own surveys and email those links to surveys out to everybody they know. And they can collect possibly dozens or hundreds of data points using these surveys. So they have actual authentic data to analyze, to put into the spreadsheets, to look at and talk about and discuss, instead of saying, okay, well, each of you do this once and now you've got 20 data pieces. You could have 200 data pieces. Students know a lot of people who are willing to click on links and take short surveys. But let your students create these. Let them decide what questions need to be asked, what the format's going to be. Let them do that critical thinking for it. Along those same lines, students can create their own practice tests and quizzes. It doesn't have to be you all the time. Can you imagine if every student, if you have 20 students, I know, pie in the sky, 20 students who each sat down and wrote their own practice quiz based on the information they learned in class, and then shared those links with each other. Now all of a sudden, every student has access to 19 other practice quizzes and tests with answer keys that they can work on before the actual one. And you didn't have to do anything except get them to a computer lab. They can install Flubaroo. They can have Flubaroo grade and send the feedback back to the students who took the quiz or the test, the practice one. Completely up to students to make this, putting the responsibility back on them, making them do critical thinking. What was important? It makes them review the actual content. What is the right answer? What would be good distractors if I'm doing multiple choice? But let students do this. They have access to this. This is a good skill for them to have, not just in terms of pedagogy, but in terms of computer programming. If they are going to college, they're probably going to encounter online surveys of various sorts, and they might have to create surveys of various sorts. It's a great way for them to think through these things. You can also have students report tech issues to you. Since all of you are online teachers, I can only imagine what kind of excuses you get from students who say, well, my computer's not working, or the internet went out, or I couldn't find the link to this on your webpage. Well, this is one way to kind of collect all of those issues that we might be having problems with. If you have a form set up, that's a very simple form. Students can pop on. If their internet's not working, they can use their phones and go on and fill out the form and just say, I can't access your website. Something seems to be blocking it. I get the blue screen of death, whatever it is, which gives you instant access to what's going on with them. You don't have to slog through all of your emails and hope that you can remember where that email was that the student sent who's having tech issues for something. And this is a great log for you to keep up and follow with ETS. On that results page, and I forgot to show you this, it's a spreadsheet. You can, at the very end of that row, you can actually type in your own comments about things without messing anything up. As long as you don't delete the data that it puts there from whoever took the form, you can type your own comments. So, follow up with mom on this, or sent to ETS on Wednesday. And then you have your own log to keep track of all these things. You can also use them for online reading logs. And I know this tends to apply more to English teachers, but this could be for, if you have a science class and the students are supposed to read science articles online or in magazines. If you have a social studies class and you do anything with current events, students can fill out these online reading logs. You can set up a form that asks them, what are you reading, who's it by, when was it published, all of that important information that they have to have on there. But then you can also have them answer some other questions. What is the what was the point of it? What was the argument? Was there bias? How did you know there was bias? You can start asking them some of those higher level thinking questions. And so as they've finished their readings, they can go to your form, fill it in, and then you have a permanent record of all of those things that students have read, how they feel about them, and you can get an insight into how they're thinking about what they're reading, which, can be hard to kind of pull out of students in a classroom setting, in a regular classroom setting. An online class, I imagine that a lot of student responses are very short and terse responses if they respond at all. So an online reading log or current event log is a great way for students to practice this expounding in an online environment. A lot of colleges are moving to hybrid classes where part of the class is conducted face-to-face and part of the class is conducted online. And students are frequently expected to contribute to online discussion boards in a thoughtful and, well, let's face it, a longer method that they are supposed to really put a lot of, 100 to 300 word responses. A lot of students in high school, 100 to 300 words just about kills them in an essay. And then they're thrown to college where they're expected to do 300 words minimum. This might be good practice to have them get used to being a little bit more verbose in their online responses instead of a lol : parentheses. I've seen forms used for debates as well when you have a class debate. And this can actually be done asynchronously. So you set up a Google form and ask the students how they feel about a certain position, whatever the debate topic is. And they can use the scales or the grids, or they can type their own responses in there to explain in more detail what they think about a topic. Then when the debate happens, both sides are presented, and then you have students fill out the exact same form again. And you have now raw data to show if students have changed their minds, how persuasive the arguments were. You can have a box on there for things that they should have talked about, things that were left out, biases that weren't addressed. You can have them do all this response to online debates, and it can be done asynchronously. You don't have to do the debate in class. Rebuttals become a little more difficult if you're not face-to-face in class, but you can have one student record their presentation for the pro side of their debate, another student record theirs for the con, and you can have the questions at the top, you can have the 2 YouTube videos for students to watch, and then questions at the bottom to see how they did, or if they changed their mind, how effective the arguments were. And students are brutally honest about these things. So I'm sure there'll be no way to get lost in there with students not participating. You can also use it for project management. So if you give students projects, and this is especially useful, I would think, in an online environment where you're not there every day looking the student in the face to say, how are you doing on this project? Do you have this part done yet? You can just tell the students that once a week, or however frequently you want them to do it, they need to go to a certain link and fill out the form to say where they are in their process, what step they're on, what they've gotten accomplished so far, questions they have, concerns they have. And then you can just quickly skim through every week, see where students are, know which students you need to give a little bit of a kick to. Any questions that are coming up or problems are coming up, you can see that, solve them, and then you can delete the responses so they can come back up again. This would also be good if students are working together in groups where they can both, you can see the answers from both students or all 3 students or however many are in the group to see if they're all kind of on the same page. Students can solicit peer feedback as well. If they're doing some writing, they can copy from Word or whatever, copy their writing, paste it into the Google form as the question, and then let other students give them some specific feedback. And you can set up this form, mechanics, voice, clarity, purpose, whatever things that you want students to give feedback about, you can set up in the form. And then as students get this feedback, you can just print off that Excel spreadsheet, that spreadsheet for them, and they can have access to all of the responses all at once instead of having a dozen, 2 dozen half sheets of paper with some things scrawled on there. They can actually have some very specific feedback given to them. You can also use it for students to book appointments, office hour type appointments. So instead of emailing you and saying, I'm completely lost, can we get together one-on-one? Is there anything? You can actually do a Google form with date and time and just say, what day or time do you want to do the one-on-one conference? They can book those, and then you'll have a permanent record of all these requests for student meetings, which you can again put in your Past notebook. You can use to show your supervisor, show parents who are going to claim that you're not helping their child. We all know how that goes. This is a record-keeping system for you as well. So instead of having all these emails coming in, it's all consolidated on one form. If you have students working in groups, they can also work together to keep an annotated bibliography. I remember when I was in school doing research, we had our stacks of index cards, and every time you found something useful in a book you're doing research, you filled out the information you needed for MLA or APA format on the card, and you put in what the information was, and you kind of filed them, and you move them around in order. Well, if you have an annotated bibliography form, as a student finds a resource, they can put in the information on the Google form, title, author, publisher, year, whatever information they want to collect. And depending on if you work with the MLA format or the APA format, that of course changes what information needs to be collected. And then they can have a paragraph where they can actually put in there the exact quotes that they want to use or summaries of the information they found in those sources. And if they're working together, in a group project, they don't have to be in the same place, and they don't have to keep their own set of note cards that might get lost or whatever. They can each contribute to the annotated bibliography form, and then when the time comes for them to put their to put everything together at the end, their works cited list, whatever, they have the spreadsheet with all the information there, which they can then use to attribute all of their quotes. They can use to do their parenthetical citations. They can use their works cited page or bibliography page. All of that can be done and collected by multiple people on one spreadsheet. And if they include you as a collaborator, you can see all that information as well. And then finally, and this is one that I really like using here, is working with Google Forms and grading rubrics. And this could be a grading rubric that you use to grade every student, or this can be a rubric that you share with students for them to grade each other. But I'll play this short little video here so you can kind of see how this person sets up rubrics to use in class.
Welcome back to Google. Today's video is brought to you by Kevin Brookhauser, Google Apps certified.
One of my favorite uses of the teacher is using forms to present papers. And there are a lot of third-party scripts that are available to use with spreadsheets that create rubrics. But I'm just going to show you how to create a form using the form. So again, go to Create,
Which is new on the new one.
and I always begin my form by the section number. That's how it's done. Right? Twice. I'm going to make this the five button.
Oh, okay. I will do this a different way then.
Welcome back to Google.
Does this work better? Hmm. Okay, well then, I'll just talk through it. Aha. Interesting. Okay. Then I don't know what's going on with that. Let's see. I'm going to try something here to see if we can get this back. Okay. Let's see if this works.
Welcome back to Google. Today's video is brought to you by Kevin Brookhauser, Google Apps certified trainer.
My favorite uses of Google.
Are you able to see this video now?
And there are a lot of third-party scripts that are available to use with spreadsheets. But I'm just going to show you how to create a form using spreadsheets.
Awesome.
And I always begin my form by the section number. That's how it's done. Twice. You want to make this. Now this could go right into the video for any sort of assessment.
Okay, then I will just send a link to this video when I email out other things.
anything you want. And then I want to create in the column, I'll put a scale, a numbered scale. I'll just go 1 through 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, so that's going to create a grid where I have the rows with the labels, and then I'll be able to write them underneath, and we'll see what that looks like on the end of the form. Also make this required so that I don't forget to actually submit it. And then I'm going to create a new grid with a new topic. And this one is going to be style. Same thing. All right. Again, I'm going to edit 1 through 5. 5 being the best, 1 being the worst, make it required. Done. And then I'm going to add one more grid, and this one will be called editing. And of course, I can make as many of these as I want. And I'll go back to my 5-point scale, make it required. And then I always end with a paragraph question so that I can post comments. And then it's done. Okay, and so I can either send this form to my students to have them evaluate their own work, or I can just keep it to myself and use it to just collect all of the data as I'm reading through the paper or for the assignment. Up at the top of the page, I can click View Live Form. And this is the link to the live form. And so you'll see that I put in a section number. And I can just trek through this. Cool thing is this works pretty well with a tablet. If I just have the link, I can just go through here and score each assignment. And then I can list in my comments and then click submit. So what happens is these submissions automatically get populated into a spreadsheet. And if I go back to the form that I created, I just click view responses. And then I automatically get that data. It always starts with the timestamp so I can see when it was submitted, section number, and then last name, so I can sort this spreadsheet by section number and then last name. Then the cool thing over here is then you see all the numbers and then you get the comments. So this automatically sums up all of the options. So he got a 50. Well, 12 times 5 is that 60. So he got a 50 out of 60. So you see that it automatically calculates the total using that form. And then I can actually just drag that formula down to the next columns, and so it'll automatically add up the next submission. So that's a great tool. I use it all the time when I'm grading student work. And the scripts that are available, like Flubaroo, have ways that you can actually email the results directly to students. You can do that. You can cut and paste the results. Or I know some teachers who actually print this out and then they'll cut up scripts and email the scripts to the students.
So all he did in this was use the grid function to create a rubric. And most of us have used the rubrics where you have the categories and the scores, and you just kind of circle or X what the score is in each category. And then you have a stack of papers that are all those rubrics all kind of together. You have to thumb through them. He has it set up on forms so that he can just click the numbers and everyone's score is together on one spreadsheet. And so you can keep all of that there. Once he has those numbers, he can delete the responses and reuse the same rubric as many times as he wants to, and it works out pretty well. Let me get rid of this real quick here. And I just want to show you real quickly one last way to easily share these forms, to send the form. So we've got the embed, which I showed you how to embed it in a web page. Under here, where you are looking at sending the form via email, you can type in all the email addresses of all of your students if that's what you want to do. That's terrible for me. I will always mess up typing in email addresses. Or you can send the link. Now, you can email the link out to students. You can post the link on your web page. You can post the link on Moodle or Edmodo or whatever other platform you're using. But there's another way that you can do this using QR codes. So if I right-click and copy this address, and I want to look at a QR code generator. And the easiest way is just to do a Google search for QR code generator. QR stands for quick response. So any of these will work. They're all free. So I just click on the first one. All you have to do is say, what are you linking to? And you've got a lot of options on here. But what we're linking to is a website. So that's what we want there. And in the website URL box, I'm just going to paste the address of the form. And you can make it static. You can make it a shorter one than that. It doesn't make any difference. You can choose what color you want it to be. You can just kind of scroll through all the colors and whatever you want. And it kind of gives you a preview over here. And then you can download it as a picture, print it, or email it to somebody. And I'm just going to hit download, and it opens up a picture that's this QR code here. Now, on smartphones and other devices, there are QR reader apps, and I've got one here. It's literally called QR Reader. And I hit that, it opens this up, and uses the camera to scan for QR codes. So all I have to do is point this at the computer screen. It recognizes the code, and then within a couple seconds actually takes me to the form to fill out. Now, because I had required users to sign in with their greenvilleschools.us address, right now it's asking me to sign in. It wants my username and password because I'm not signed in on my phone. But if students sign in like that, or if you have it set so that they don't have to sign in to collect the information, they can just scan it. You can throw this picture up on the screen. They can hold their phones up and take a picture of it, whether it's on the computer screen, that man got big, on the computer screen, or if it's on the Promethean board. Students can just walk in, bell ringer, take their phones, scan it, do the bell ringer on their phones, submit, and by the time the bell rings, you've got all of this great data to work with and see where students are, and they've already got started thinking about your topic. QR codes are not difficult to make. There are some websites that let you do really kind of fun shapes with them. This is not one of those. But you see these codes on the bottom of all sorts of things. You can make one looks like a Facebook, or one looks like BMW symbol, or whatever you want. You can make these QR codes, and they all work. They really do work when you can scan. This one looks like Facebook. It doesn't matter if the F is there. The pattern of dark and light is all that matters. Colors don't make any difference when your phone's trying to read it. All right, that is Google Forms in all of its glory. Are there any questions at this point? All right. Not seeing anything yet, but just to make sure we're all on the same page here. It sounds like, if I understand what Janet is saying, that I showed you all those examples and I had for ways you could use in the online classroom. I actually had a slideshow going to show you those things. Looks like you may not have been able to see all of those that I had typed out there. I will send you that document when I send this out as an email. So not only will you get the link for the video, you'll also get the document listing all of those ways that forms could be used in the online classroom. Okay, any questions over this? I know we did a lot in a very short time, and there's a lot to play with. And quite frankly, the easiest thing for you to do is to play with it, create a form, have your kids do it, what do you want for dinner tonight? And just see what it looks like. See how the form comes back, what the responses look like. Try it with something. If it's not you, if it really doesn't work for your class or your situation, no one's going to judge you for not using it. I mean, I'm totally not wearing my judging face right now. So you can use it in a way that works best for you. Yes, the secret word. Oh, thank you. I completely forgot to look at the secret word today. Okay, I'll look up secret word as I answer this other question from Janet. I have never used, is that Equity? I've never used that online software before. It might take the embed code or just the sharing URL. You can play with that and see how that works. I don't know. I actually don't. Let me see what word do I want to use. Okay, I have a word. And I'll type it onto this right here once it finishes loading. Yes, think. Okay. I'll make the word exordium. Can everyone see that on the screen? Excellent. I have a vocabulary word a day email list that I'm on, and that's my word for today. So I'll make that. Exordium is the introduction to something. Now you know. Knowing's half the battle. And I'll make sure to report this word to Laura and Tim as well, so they can know that you watched all the way to the bitter end. Okay, any other questions? Okay, for now, I will stay on here, keep this open for about 5 more minutes. If you think of anything, I will still be on here. I'm going to stop recording in about 1 minute so that we can still, chat if you need to. But I'm glad you guys are finding this informative and I hope useful. Again, if you have any questions about it, you can email me. And I do like helping people with things. So feel free to email me. My email address should be on the screen right now. And then I can help out with this as much as I can. You are all welcome. All right, I'm going to go ahead and stop recording. Thank you. Have a good day.